Alice Adventure in Wonderland, Chapters 4, 5, and 6, presented by Group 2. Chapter 4. The Rabbit Sends in a Little Bill.
Hi, I am P. Vargas. So the topic that I will discuss is the chapter 4, The Rabbit Sends in a Little Bill. So for introduction, in chapter 4, the rabbit hurried carefully back again as if concerned about something he had lost. Alice noticed it and assumed that the white rabbit was hunting for a fan and a pair of white kid gloves. This is when Alice noticed that the white rabbit again and followed him and spotted her, warning her to go away, forcing her to run away, making through the white rabbit house. And in this instant is where the chapter 4 begins. This explains as Alice begins her fantasy journey through Wonderland. She finds herself drawn more into the mysteries of the mystical place known as Wonderland. She finds some unexpected issues as well as strange characteristics and some animals, as well as realize that things are going to get much more silly and surprising.
Recap. In Chapter 3 of Alice Adventure in Wonderland, Alice meets the various creatures after swimming through her own tears. She encountered a dodo, a lorry, a duck, a mouse, and other animals that were also caught in the rising waters. To dry themselves off, the dodo suggests a carcass race. They run in a circle with no clear start or finish line until they feel dry. Later, the mouse tells a rather sad and lengthy story, unintentionally offending the other animals with his tale. This causes an uproar and Alice intervenes, attempting to calm everyone down by reciting a poem she had learned. However, the creatures don't understand the poem, leading to further confusion. The chapter emphasized the nonsensical nature of Wonderland, where logic often fails and communication can be perplexing. It sets the tone for the bizarre encounters and unpredictable events that Alice will face throughout her adventures.
As what I said earlier in introduction, where Alice found the white rabbit again, follow him and making her run towards his house. And this is where she found a small bottle with a word drink me and she drank it. As she drank that potion, she started to grow quickly that she can't even fit anymore in the house. Animals, including the mentioned animals, the rabbit, lizard, and some guinea pigs, some birds, gather outside the house of the white rabbit, throw stones at Alice, misunderstood her for a threat, but that stone turned into a pieces of cake, which Alice ate it, and then she began to shrink. When she shrank, she started to run away from the animals. While running away, she met a puppy along the way and started to play with her a little bit. The chapter finishes with Alice meeting the white rabbit again and her size shifting from large to a little. However, her interaction with the creatures in the white rabbit is just a full of misunderstanding. This illustrates the quirky and strange nature of Wonderland. The white rabbit's failure, the struggle of Alice to overcome some obstacles, which makes a big contribute to the novel broader theme. Hi, I am P. Vargas. So the topic that I will discuss is the chapter 4, The Rabbit Sends in a Little Bill. So for introduction, in chapter 4, the rabbit hurried carefully back again as if concerned about something he had lost. Alice noticed it and assumed that the white rabbit was hunting for a fan and a pair of white kid gloves. This is when Alice noticed that the white rabbit again and followed him and spotted her, warning her to go away, forcing her to run away, making through the White Rabbit house, and in this instant is where the chapter 4 begins. This explains as Alice begins her fantasy journey through Wonderland. She finds herself drawn more into the mysteries of the mystical place known as Wonderland. She finds some unexpected issues as well as strange characteristics and some animals, as well as realize that things are going to get much more silly and surprising.
Insight of the chapter: Alice's ongoing struggle with the changes in size and surreal nature of Wonderland. It emphasized the theme of transformation as Alice alternates between being too large and being too small, highlighting her inability to find a stable identity or place in his whimsical world. The chapter's focus on size reflects the challenges of navigating a world where logic and rules constantly shift, mirroring the unpredictability of growing up and finding one's place in society.
Hi, my name is Jarel John Pineda, and I'm going to discuss Chapter 5 Advice from the Caterpillar.
Hello everyone, I'm Cedric Kennedy Gonzalez from BSBA501P. First, I'm gonna start with the introduction of the Chapter 5 Alice in the Adventure in the Wonderland, introducing readers to a curious encounter between Alice and a caterpillar. After the whimsical experience in the previous chapter, Alice finds herself in a forest and discovers a caterpillar sitting on a mushroom, leisurely smoking a hookah. This chapter delves into a conversation between Alice and the caterpillar, who provides cryptic and philosophical guidance. The caterpillar's advice involves Alice ingesting a different parts of a mushroom to control her size, contributing to the ongoing theme of size fluctuations in Wonderland. The introduction of Chapter 5 sets to the stage for a more surreal and thought-provoking experience in Alice's fantastical journey.
Well, the White Rabbit then orders Alice to go to his house and get his belongings after mistaking her for Mary Ann. His housemaid, startled by the rabbit's request, Alice complies and quickly locates his home. Along with the gloves and fan, she discovered a small bottle marked "Drink Me." Alice is curious to see what the contents would do, so she takes a sip of the liquid. Before she knows it, she started to grow quickly and she's barely able to fit in the room. A gathering of animals outside demands Dina to get them. The stone turns into cake and Alice eats one, shrinking in the process, thinking the cake might make her smaller. When she emerges from the house, a horde of animals is waiting to attack her.
Character Development. Alice is irritated at the caterpillar making such very short remarks. And every time the caterpillar replies, it replies with a sleepy voice. Alice's character develops in a way that she gains control over her transformation and learns to manage her temper. Later on, you will understand how her character developed in the summary.
For the summarization of the Chapter 5, we saw the caterpillar smoking a hookah, and the unexpected and transforming experience in the Wonderland are symbolized by the caterpillar's advice to devour the mushroom. With one side generating either growth or shrinkage, this act represents Alice's willingness to embrace the fluidity of her existence. Following a tumultuous encounter with an irate pigeon, a butterfly emerges, offering to guide Alice home, symbolizing hope and the possibility of returning to the familiar ground.
Connection of assigned chapters to previous chapters. While in chapter 4, the stones turns into cakes and Alice eats one, making her smaller. And when she moves away from the house, a horde of animals is waiting to attack her. Then, Alice turns away and hides in the wood, where she comes across a huge mushroom around the same height of her. Then continuation in chapter 5, she meets the big blue caterpillar that was smoking a long hookah peacefully. Then, the big blue caterpillar helps Alice by advising her to eat pieces of mushroom to control her height.
For our insights of the chapter 5, from the advice from chapter 5 advice from the caterpillar, this chapter also
Chapter
showcased
6,
Alice's growing ability to
Pig
control her
and
size by
Pepper.
consuming pieces of the mushroom, demonstrating her increasing adaptability to the absurd rules of the Wonderland. Overall, the chapter 5 continues to explore the theme of identity and the adaptation in a world governed by illogical and nonsensical rules.
The
Adding to the
fish
whimsical
footman later
and
talks to
thought-provoking
her,
nature of the story,
stating
it
that he
offers
was
profound
ordered by the
lessons
queen
about
to send an
identity
invitation for the
transformation and
duchess.
self-discovery.
Alice
We
later
learn that
enters the house, and inside
navigate
Alice
change,
finds the
question our
Duchess, the
self-perception,
cook,
approach
and
life
the
complexities
Cheshire Cat.
with an
She
open
finds
mind.
the Duchess who is
Rely on our
nursing a
strengths for
sequeling
independent
baby, as
exploration
well
and
as
seek
a
guidance and
grinning
maintain hope
Cheshire
just
Cat
as the
and a cook.
butterfly symbolizes.
Recap. In the context of the story before the present chapter, Alice has already
So,
encountered
hello,
a
my
series of
name is
strange
Raymond
events
Ventre,
and
and the
characters,
topic that I will
starting with
discuss is
her fall
Chapter
down
6,
to the
Pig and
rabbit hole.
Pepper.
In the
For
first
the
chapter, her
introduction of
encounter with
Chapter
the mouse
6,
as a cook
Alice was standing in
accompanies
front
Alice
of a
to shore,
house,
where a
wondering what
number
to
of
do next.
animals stand
After a
gathered
few
on a bank
moments,
for the race in the second chapter, up to the third chapter, which ends the caucus race, and this result to Alice scaring the animals away with the tails of her cat. Dina and Dina ends up finding her alone again. Chapter 4 then begins when Alice meets the white rabbit again, and lastly in chapter 5 where Alice meets the caterpillar.
as for the summary of Chapter 6, and as I have mentioned earlier, Alice meets the fish footman and then they both talk to each other. After a few moments, Alice opens the door and finds herself in the kitchen. She saw the Duchess nursing a baby, a grinning cat sitting on a fireplace, and the cook standing at the stove, dumping pepper into a cauldron of soup. Alice then asks the Duchess why the cat is smiling and then learns from the Duchess that it is a Cheshire cat. Alice then wonders why a cat will grin at all.
Hi, my name is Vin Simon Panagitan, and I will be reporting the Chapter 6 of Alice in Wonderland. Character Development. Alice's character development is evolving. She navigates the strange and chaotic world with curiosity and adaptation. Her experiences with odd personalities like the Cheshire Cat and the Duchess test her knowledge of the universe. Alice begins to question her surroundings, logic, and demonstrate tenacity in responding to the absurdities she encounters. This chapter contributes to Alice's development as an acquiring and adaptive protagonist in Wonderland. Alice's character evolves from having a lot of questions about what's happening to her in Wonderland, turning to becoming accustomed to it. When she encountered weird creatures, such as a caterpillar that changes its size, a frog footed guy that produced a letter under his arm, and the Cheshire Cat who always smiled, in this part, Alice begins to adjust to her new surroundings and starts to adapt what kind of creature she encounters in Wonderland. Connection of Chapter 6 to Chapter 5. In Chapter 5, Alice encounters the caterpillars and notices that her size changes after eating various portions of the mushroom. This shift sets the stage for her time at the Duchess' residence in Chapter 6. The caterpillar's advice and the changes in size serve as a prelude of Alice's adventure in the following chapter, in which she meets the Cheshire Cat, witness strange behavior in the Duchess' house, and travels even deeper in the colorful and unpredictable realm of Wonderland. The story runs seamlessly, with each chapter building on the events and themes introduced in previous chapter and bringing it to the overall magical story of Alice's trip. In chapter 5, Alice meets the caterpillar, and the caterpillar size changes after he eats a mushroom. The caterpillar advises her that what happens in the story to Alice will get her used to it after a while. Well, the same thing happened in the Duchess' house in chapter 6 when she nurses the baby that turned into a pig. Alice is also taught by the caterpillar that if she eats the mushroom, the other half will make her taller and the other half will make her smaller. So when chapter 6 appears in the story, Alice was ready for the strange inconsistencies in the Duchess' house, but she was no longer surprised because of the caterpillar's advice. Insights of chapter 6. In chapter 6 of Lewis Carroll's Alice Adventures in Wonderland, titled Pig and Pepper, I've made an insight in which I understand the moral lessons of this chapter, which seems to emphasize the unpredictable nature of societal expectation, featuring and embracing individualism in a world of societal absurdities, which is important. The unpredictable nature of chapter 6 in the Duchess' house leads Alice to believe that things in Wonderland are different from the real world from which she came. In Wonderland, she seems different to everyone, yet in the actual world, these people she meets only appear in fairy tales or imaginative characters. But it was real for Alice since she was in Wonderland. She was conversing with the caterpillar, a dodo, and furthermore, thanks to the caterpillar's advice, she realized by the time she got to the Duchess' house that everything in Wonderland was different from her world. And that's the end of the topic for the reporting of our group. Thank you.
And that concludes our reporting of chapters 4, 5, and 6. We are Group 2 and we are signing off.